evening, sports fans, and welcome to the All Balls Sports Show. Brought to you in part by True Love's Pizza and Grits at 1144 Riverside Drive. A discussion of any and all sports, local, regional, and national. And now, here are your hosts, Dan James and Eddie Bobo.
And thank you very much, Bill Jones, and welcome to the All the Balls Sports Show, our very first show from the undisclosed location that is also known as my office. And alongside of me is Eddie Bobo, and then we have our co-host, which are former coach Vance Ballou. Also, we have who are you? You don't know.
Some guy just walked in off the street.
Yeah, well, we know that. Ty Cobb is here, and Dan LaFawn brought your guest with you.
I did. Coach Witherow and Coaches McCollum from Central High School's Central women's rugby team.
All right, very good. Excellent. We'll get into that in a second. This was an idea to do the All the Balls sports show. Came about probably 2-3 years ago. We just finally were able to put the idea together. And it's something Eddie and I have talked about on the road for many a football game, on the road, carrying equipment, stuff like that. So we decided to put it all together, and thanks to True Loves, who said, yeah, we'll supply some pizza for you if we can be the official pizza supplier for the All the Ball show. We said, sure. Just natural combination, pizza, sports, beer.
Yeah.
What time's that pizza getting here?
6:45.
Thank you.
Yeah, Glenn says, hey, I got 2 sports shows I'm
That's
sponsoring.
right.
So,
That's right. He does. He does the Thursday night show, the Thursday night preview that we do for Central High School football. And now he's doing the All the Ball sports show. December 7th, 1941, day will live in infamy. And by the way, and I know that probably Coach knows this, that the word infamy was not the original word that the President Roosevelt had put on paper, that he had scratched that out and put infamy in there.
What did he scratch out?
I can't remember. It was on the History Channel the other night.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
It was a reference to world history somehow.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, our thoughts, prayers go out to all families that had anybody involved in World War II and the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So that's 75 years ago today. Also, hearts go out to and want to pay respects to Master Chief Enoch Luna, who passed away last week. He was one of the founding forces behind the Navy Junior ROTC at Central High School, and you will not find. I would beg anyone to find a nicer gentleman than Enoch Luna. He was one of the nicest men I think I have ever met in my life. And he passed away. One interesting thing I found in the paper today was that 1% of the current active naval members are Master Chiefs. And they said in the paper that you would be better to find an NFL player and meet them than you will find a Master Chief.
Wow.
That's how rare that they are. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to his family.
He was a great supporter of athletics too, besides for the work he did with ROTC, and he was always at the games, and he would drive a bus if needed at a moment's notice, and just really committed to the kids at Central High School and athletics in general.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Vance, it wasn't his family from Alabama, because
Yes,
he came up here with a travel trailer for a long time and lived in that.
He did.
And would go back and forth to Alabama.
He was from the Hazel Green area, which I believe is where he moved back to.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a huge outpouring of love on social media from students and individuals that went on to serve and other endeavors, and just I knew him in very short term. I believe his last year at Central was one of my first or second years, but a warm, kind, respectable man, and beloved by his students and peers. So
yeah, he was a true class act, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into some sports. Your Alabama Crimson Tide doing quite well in the Final Four of the possible national championship. What do you think, Vance?
Oh, I'm excited. I mean, it should be two great games. Hopefully, it'll be two, but it's an interesting time of the year for football, no doubt. And four good teams in, anything can happen, I guess.
How exciting is it for you to see a true freshman like Jalen Hurts come in and do what he has done? And it just looks like it's so simple for him, and that it's just no panic involved.
Well, that's true, and it's just so rare. I mean, it's been since '84, the last time a freshman started at quarterback at Alabama, and I can't remember many in the SEC. Probably if we went around the room, we might could pick out a handful maybe, but to have the successful year he's had, and he was just named the Offensive Player of the Year in the conference as well as a freshman, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's definitely cool as a cucumber standing back there, and nothing seems to rattle him.
Yeah, he stays calm, and it's paid off for him.
Not to mention Bennett at the beginning of the year, who I've never seen a guy have deer in the headlight looks as much as he did the first couple of games.
Yeah, he did. I think it goes back to make the point of a freshman starting and how difficult that is. Blake Bennett was shaky, and didn't take him long to make a change.
No, and then Hurts comes in, he's just ice cold.
Yeah,
he really and he throws something bad. Go to the next one. Let's do another one. He forgets about that and moves on to the next one.
Well, the very first play there was that fumble, and it was not the fault of the quarterback. I mean, it was just one of those deals that the running back didn't have his arms open wide enough, and quarterback didn't get the ball exactly where it needed to be. But still, I mean, a lot of coaches would have said, I got to sit this guy down now. Put me somebody else in there. But coaches stayed with him, and it sure paid off.
Yes, it did.
All right. What about your University of Tennessee Volunteers?
Man, disappointed.
They're my volunteers too, Ty.
Oh, I know.
You talk about Hurts. There's a different style of quarterback now in the SEC too. You're seeing quarterbacks that are able to run.
Right.
And Dobbs can run, Hurts can run. So it's going to be interesting to see as recruits go on the next 2, 3, 4 years. Is that the style of quarterback that most coaches are looking for? But Hurts has definitely been tremendous, and like you said, he's cool and calm, but he can run the football too, and that's impressive for a freshman.
The mobile quarterback is something that is going nationwide, really. I mean, and even on the pro ranks, they're looking at the mobile quarterback.
Yep.
So.
Now, were you as surprised as everybody else was the way that Jalen Hurd performed this season?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. After the Texas A&M game when he didn't make that trip, I didn't realize that the chemistry was that bad between him and Coach Jones. But, Tennessee's always been able to produce a running back. When Chuck Webb went down and Reggie Cobb and some of the ones you look back in the 90s, they've always had a running back come off the bench and do the same thing that the leading running back does. So Tennessee's always been known to have good running backs. But I didn't see the Jalen Hurd coming. I'm sure it was kind of kept hid beginning of the season. It could have led from last year, but definitely disappointing for Tennessee for an in-star recruit player. And I watched him in the state championship games and really thought he was going to be.
Yeah, we did too.
Yeah, that was a great night for us. Let me tell you, got up close and personal view of Jalen Hurd's capabilities.
He was a one-man wrecking machine.
I mean,
55 points. I mean, he was one man. We could not tackle one player.
However, I have said this, and we have had this discussion on many a road trip. I would dare put Jalen Hurd up against the 2010 defense that we had for the state championship.
Sure. Shaq Mason.
Shaq would have shut him down.
Yep.
Tre'Davious Goff would have shut him down.
Yep. We
because
had speed in the
Tre'Davious would have
secondary.
grabbed him around the ankles. He never would. He no yards.
I agree with
That's my personal opinion.
And you had
And it should be yours.
Did you have, were your sons in that? Nephews?
Our youngest son Eric was in his junior year.
Gotcha. And he had,
graduated year before.
You got the Blues back there holding down the secondary.
Right.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, when you look at that 2012 state championship Columbia Lions team, heavily riding on the success of the defense as a whole,
Right.
with no absolute standouts. But when you look at the offense, you got Dre Hall, and you've got Markham throwing to him.
Yeah.
And I remember being on the sideline, my first year in Columbia, my first year part of Lion football, and just watching these two hook up all game. Deep pass, post, touchdown.
And it's quite funny in a way. Dre, when he was a freshman, and even as a sophomore, he dropped more passes than he would catch.
He couldn't catch Cole.
And then
certainly.
all of a sudden, his junior and senior year, especially his senior year, he really came on and became an outstanding receiver.
And a shout out to him too. He has set wonderful records at UNA.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
he
Doing
really
really
has.
well.
And Ty brought up the thing about Jalen Hurd not making the trip to A&M game, and it was my understanding that actually the football team voted for him not to go. That they were the ones who said we don't want him.
When reading about all of that, it sounded so much like ego was in the way and not ability or injury, like that was the story. And especially with now he's declared that he's going to go into the draft, I just feel like it was, I'm better than this team. I don't need to be here. And so they were like, you're not even part of this team anymore.
All right, but here's the question: who's going to take him if he quits his team, and openly quits his team? What NFL team is going to take him? Because that coach in the back of his mind is going to say, when is this kid going to walk off the field?
Well, that's definitely one of the things that will be brought up on interview process. Are you going to walk away from the team?
Yeah.
And if he says I don't know, then that's a red flag right there.
But when you evaluate NFL players and some of the ones that have done like Jalen Hurd, the NFL has been known to open the door for them, whether you like it or not.
Right.
There's some owners, if you win and you can produce, we don't care what you do off the field or if you can't leave.
But isn't he going to have to find a team that's going to develop an offense around him?
Not necessarily.
But that's why he quit Tennessee.
I think regardless, he's going to get a very minimum league salary, even if he made the team
Right.
for the first 2 years and prove himself.
Until he proves himself. I mean, there's a lot of running backs that came from UT that did very well at the college that weren't even drafted and had to go as walk-ons,
And there's a lot of running backs that
Right.
want to play in NFL, so
Right.
he's one of many.
Well, the whole thing in a nutshell, there's less than 1% of all football players that play college ball that make it to the next level.
Yep.
So
Then on the defensive side, Derek Barnett, ends up setting what was the same record that Reggie White had when he was there.
he tied the sack record.
Yeah.
And he still has the bowl game to go to break it. So,
Right. Right. But defense is UT's problem at the moment.
Achilles.
That Vanderbilt game surprised me in the fact
I don't think it was just you that was surprised.
well, I mean, in the fact that it wasn't their running that beat us, it was the passing game. Our defensive backs couldn't cover a dead body. I don't think that night, but it was terrible. I mean, me and Dan sat right in yonder and watched the game, and we had that big lead at halftime, and then, here it comes out. It's tale of two halves.
If they had played Vanderbilt second game, third game, different story, because it was a different team, and that's what happens when the culture falls by the wayside and everybody has not bought in anymore. They've kind of let go of this idea, and losing a guy like Jalen Hurd, no matter who he is, when you lose anybody, that hurts a team because the team is now less, it's weaker, etc.
But saying that, I do think Tennessee next year, it's wide open for a leader. There's
Oh,
going
yeah.
to be a lot of new faces, new positions wide open, so they are looking for somebody to lead that football team next year.
This was supposed to be the year for UT because it was a young team
Right.
coming up. Jalen Hurd came in 4 years ago, Dobbs, all these guys, and Butch Jones kept saying, we're building something. And they really did. I mean, the first 5 games were like, here it is. This is what they've built. This is what we've been waiting for. And then crush after crush
They
after
had the
crush.
momentum. They won the games when they needed to win them, beating Georgia.
Okay, let me ask you this: did they fall to the hype about themselves because they go into the biggest game that's ever been played in East Tennessee, or maybe in the United States, as far as building a football field in Bristol, and they win that one.
I'm going to defer that question to the coach.
Man, there was one question I was hoping I wasn't going to get, and that was it. I think all of that's true. They probably did fall to the hype. I think the injuries were a part of it, no question. I think it wasn't just that they lost 2 players on defense. They lost their 2 best leaders, their 2 best players defensively is what I meant to say earlier. That's a huge loss. That's hard to overcome, and obviously there wasn't anybody to fill the void to that point, to the point that was needed. The thing I always think back to is maybe everybody fell to the hype as opposed to just the team, because in reality maybe they start the season number 9.
Mm-hmm.
In reality they probably weren't number 9. We go by polls and all that, and polls are really just people's opinions, and they redo those opinions every Monday. So it's not like that's the most accurate thing in the world, especially to start the season.
Right. I mean, look at 2 of their opponents in the first 5 games. Appalachian State, we should have handled that. We barely won that game, and we didn't beat Ohio, that bad either. And for an SEC team, they should have won those games handily, and not doing that. There should have been a flag out there to people. Hey, maybe we're not as good as we think we are, But, they're still my boys. I'll stick with them through thick and thin. I've been through them through a lot of lean years and been with them through the good years, and hopefully one day we'll return to the top.
I think also Vanderbilt deserves a lot of credit for the way they played the second half against UT. They
shut us down.
That's the best I've seen Vanderbilt in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
As far as the defense and the offense playing well at the same time. The defense has certainly stood out at points during the season, no question about that. But boy, every time they needed a play offensively, they came through with it, which I don't think that was just Tennessee's negative. I think some of that was Vanderbilt's
How rare
positive.
is it, though, for a head coach to say, all right, I'm taking over the defense. I'm tired of having a defensive coordinator. I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, that's true. And on the college level, it is somewhat rare. I'd say it's probably happened more often in recent years than in the past, because now their coaches get paid so much money they have to win. Now, one of the things is when you first don't win, you get rid of your coordinators and then position coaches, and it kind of works out as if that's your forte as the head coach, you can do it during the season, and maybe salvage that particular season as opposed to waiting until the end of the season. Still turned out to be a good move for him in that certain circumstance.
He's a good coach.
Yep.
Definitely is. But we'll see next year what happens. And we'll see what happens in the bowl games.
And that is the first time, I believe, that I've seen a coach actually dance on the sidelines. I don't know if y'all noticed
You
that.
should come to a rugby game.
Yeah. I saw
During my entire
his
years,
dance.
during my entire years of being around Central High School football, I can honestly say,
Never saw this man dance.
no.
And
No.
never will.
However, he did every year put on his Jones and Lang outfit,
Oh, yes.
and we had the official Vance Ballou Jones and Lang fall outfit that he wore every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that? What did that consist of?
Khakis.
A jacket.
Wild man.
Maybe a hat.
But from the press box, I made sure we announced that when he was walking across the field that you're now looking at the official fall lineup of clothes from Jones and Lang for Vance Ballou.
That's a nice
It-
plug.
yeah.
Yeah.
It appears we're ready for the next topic.
This is the most I've heard Coach Blue talk in my life. since I've known him.
Oh, he got to where we were great on Thursday mornings because we would do the Vance Ballou show. Now you got to understand that before the radio games that we would do 15 minutes of absolutely nothing. We gave them nothing. We really talked about nothing, and the visiting coaches would never hear nothing, would never hear anything. So the Vance Ballou show was a couple of biscuits, some coffee, and we had that every Thursday morning. And we had some of the best times and some of the best talks we've ever had. And it was great. I miss those days.
Oh, me too, especially the free breakfast.
That's true. Dan LaFond is in to talk about rugby. And, we had you on back during the fall for the Thursday night preview, but we thought we'd bring you in on the first show and sit and talk about it because you have such a passion for this game. And it was a game that you picked up, 5 seasons ago?
5 years ago, yeah.
And had absolutely no idea what you were doing. But now you've got a couple of people that you brought along with you that also are starting to help.
And have no idea what they're doing.
This is their first year.
Yep.
Actually, it would be 3 people because I'm going to be in the press box this year.
Yes, sir.
And I have been watching TV rugby. I can't figure it out.
Sure.
I'm lost.
Yep. Understandable. It took me, those first 2 seasons just watching referees and asking them, sir, okay, so what was that? What was that motion with your hands? Oh, okay, offsides, wonderful. Okay, oh, what was that motion with your hands? Oh, high tackle.
How can you be offsides? I've been watching this stuff.
Sure. So, we can talk about basic rugby gameplay. So
Sure.
I'm a lifetime football guy.
Right.
4th grade, first year up in Michigan, we had what was called Rocket football. You have Pop Warner down here,
Sure.
and all the way through my senior year, and football was my life. And I was recruited by little D3 colleges in Michigan to return punts, and I thought to myself, is that the job I want the next 4 years, to be a punt returner? And so I didn't pursue that. But football was so near and dear to my heart. I came to Columbia. Took the job as the assistant freshman coach to help varsity with wide receivers, and the first year solidified. Here I am. I'm with a state championship high school team. This is where I wanted to be. And a sophomore young woman asked me, Coach LaFond, if we had a rugby team here at Central for girls, would you sponsor it? I'm like, well, what does that mean? And they go, well, you basically just kind of sign off on it, and you're just a part of it, and you are our adult representation in the school.
And little did you know.
Exactly. And so, at that point, I'm thinking, okay, here's this girl. She's literally 4'11".
Right.
Women's rugby, the same rugby you see on TV. My buddy played rugby in college. I know that it's a rough sport, and I'm like, is it different for girls? And she's like, no, we play the exact same sport. And so again, knowing nothing. And I was like, I'll sign off on your little team, and but still thinking in my head like, football's my thing, and I'll help these girls in the spring with this rugby deal. Maybe I can, maybe it'll be fun. I don't know. Having no expectations, not to like the sport, not to even think about like real coaching. I mean, what could I bring from football to rugby? Well, tackling. I could bring some ball skills, but very very limited understanding of anything, and not really putting a lot of stock into it. And so that first year. We had 17 girls. We had maybe 2 athletes that had played other sports. We had a girl who had a child. Okay, I mean that's the kind of those are the kind of people that we had in our team. Girls that had never run a lap before or done a push-up or just wasn't a good crop. But you know what? They showed up and they were like, "Yeah, I heard you get to tackle in this game." And like, "Yeah, we do that," and that was enough for them. And so the conference, the Middle Tennessee Rugby Conference, was amazing. And I remember the first emails, basically explaining like, they got to have somebody they can stand behind and somebody that's gonna push them. Are you that person? And I said, I think so. I think I can be, but I don't. And in my head, I'm like, this isn't gonna last another year. This isn't gonna be. And so these girls go into these games and absolutely get annihilated. First time they were playing the sport. There's the Blackmans and the Ravenwoods and the Riverdales of the world. The
but
dominating.
Let me ask you this: did you have any kind of plan going in at all?
No. Nope. And here was my entire plan. I said, I'll sponsor it if you find somebody to coach the game itself. And so we found a CHS graduate who was 19 and still very young in a lot of, a 19-year-old kid, very young in a lot of ways, had some technical knowledge, but no coaching moxie, and just a kid with some rugby information. And so it was me and this young woman. She was 19, and that were coaching this sport as best as we could, and that was the plan. And the plan was to learn through experience. And like Dan, you've watched rugby on TV, but especially professional rugby, it's so fast. Now, if I could go back and tell myself, I'd say, hey, go watch college women's rugby, because it's not as fast as professional rugby. You will see, the game as it's set up, understand that there's onside and kind of penalties such as that to learn from. But, I would watch professional rugby. I'd be like, I can't, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. And so the learning process was simply making mistakes, watching penalties happen, and asking referees. And everybody was very nice, very gracious. They would stop the game those first 2 years and be like, okay, here's what you did wrong, and here's what you got to do correctly, and here's the penalty that's going to happen. And they would the referee, the players from other teams, because it's such a new and emerging sport that it's in everybody's best interest to have new teams. And so they were very patient, very gracious, and that was awesome. And what I learned is that, and this is what was so surprising, being such a competitive person in football my entire life, I mean, winning, of course, isn't everything, but winning's a lot more fun than losing. What I was finding is that these girls are going to this game and just getting blanked by these supreme teams, Ravenwood, Blackman, Riverdale, 60, 70-0. They'd stop keeping score. And the girls come off the field just grinning. I'm like, okay, so we lost again, but hey, was that fun? And they were like, that was awesome. And I'm like, this is the strangest experience. Like, I'm used to kids thinking that it's awesome when we win and it sucks when we lose, etc. And so seeing how quickly these girls latched onto the sport and kind of the fun that came from that was a completely different experience.
Is it the physicality they like?
It's the fact that, nobody's telling them they can't do something, tackling somebody full speed. I mean, young men don't realize until they graduate how special it is that you get to play a sport where you get to hit somebody as hard as you can and nobody arrests you and nobody asks you why you did that. And I remember them telling me that when I was a kid. I was like, yeah, coach, yeah. But now, my coach would be like, any of these coaches would give their, pinky finger to play one more game of football, and no kid understands that. You can't give a kid perspective. And so for these girls to get a taste of that, I get to pick up this ball and run with it. I don't have to hit it with a racket or dunk it or spike it or no, you get to pick it up and run with it. And they love that, and they love hitting, and they love being physical, the girls that come out. So
Coach McCullum, let me ask you this. This is something I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, what bet did you lose to come on with him?
It's funny. Dan actually filmed my wedding a few years ago, and he told me if ever there was a chance that I would have to work with him, that he would give me a reduced rate on the wedding. And so I thought, never in a million years, never in a million years, I would ever work with Dan LaFon, and here I am on the Dan James radio show.
He pulled the trump card out of it.
AJ is a National Guardsman, and so he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to PT, otherwise known as physical training. And so, he has no rugby knowledge, but you know what? He's got way more physical training knowledge than I do. And so AJ can come on as an expert and be our unofficial strength and conditioning coach. And AJ's got some ideas to get these girls into shape.
Well, it's the thing about rugby is unlike any other sport really, is there is no stopping. The closest thing to that is soccer, which requires a whole lot of cardiovascular endurance. Granted muscular endurance, but not like what we demand in rugby. Dan's made a point a couple of times of saying that the games never come to an entire stop ever. If there's an injury, well, can we get you off the field quick enough to continue? The clock's not going to stop. We have things to do. So the main thing is getting cardiovascular endurance, because it never stops. And then also some muscular endurance and resilience, so that they can hit the ground, their shoulders, hips, knees, elbows, 40, 50 times a game and get up and keep going. So that's going to be the approach in all the training that we'll do, is to make sure that they are physically and their lung capacity, their cardiovascular endurance is as high as it can be without maybe tarnishing any muscles that we need to develop at the same time, to keep them resilient and keep them uninjured.
Well, now you guys started out with 17.
Yep.
5 years ago?
Yep.
You're up to how many now?
So, our fall conditioning numbers, which we haven't been doing fall conditioning until this last year, practicing, twice a week with a lot of running and just ball work. But we've had as many as 37 girls.
Wow.
And that's not including the girls that are playing basketball, some that are in like winter guard or band stuff that's still going on. We have a few injuries even that are happening right now. So, I predict we'll have about a 40-person roster, and the numbers are great. I mean, we have as many people as we need. The last 3 years we've had girls from Mount Pleasant, and they've been awesome players. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I should go talk to Mount Pleasant. But if I can field a full team with just Central girls, I have no reason to go to Mount Pleasant. So I mean, the thing is that with Tennessee rugby the way it is, we are not a TSSAA sport, which means that any girl from a school can come play at Central as long as rugby isn't at that school. So as you are probably aware, Spring Hill High School is now going to have a women's rugby team. So if a girl was at Spring Hill, she couldn't play at Central because there's rugby at Spring Hill. So if a girl came to me from Mount Pleasant and said, "Hey, Coach, I know such and such that graduated last year from Mount Pleasant. I would love to play for your team," I would quite simply say, "Come out and show me what you can do. If you can run, if you can move, if you're tough, I got a spot for you." But I'm not going to carry just a kid, as we call them in football, a cake eater and a bus rider, that just want to wear their jersey, which is a problem.
I'm sorry.
Cake eaters and bus riders, they're the worst. But anyway, we don't have room for that,
right.
and so we would never turn anybody away. But and we've got a fantastic group of girls. At this point, almost the way the UT has built a senior class. 6 phenomenal seniors that are good women. They're smart. They're hardworking. And they set the expectations. And in our team, we have a ranking system. And the more years of rugby you have, kind of the more power you have in practice. And rugby is a player's game. The practices are the coach's domain. But when it comes to playing the game, it is the team that is on the field. I'm a cheerleader. The coaches are cheerleaders. The players who aren't in, they're cheerleaders or they're reserve players. When they're out there on the field, they're calling the shots. There are plays in rugby, but they're just kind of, if you get around to it, if we get the opportunity, maybe run this. But otherwise, what's wonderful about rugby from a strategic standpoint is that there's so little strategy. There's quite simply fundamentals to repetition and grind and just ingraining these girls.
Well, I've seen that with the rugby that I've watched. That there really isn't a lot of strategy to it. It's whoever falls on the ball and who can grab it out from under them and toss it to somebody else.
Which speaks to the very bold claim that it is the toughest sport on grass. I mean, you look at a game like soccer, which has so much running, but
right.
As you watch the ball, I mean, activity happens around the ball. And in rugby, in 15s, which is what we play, 15 players per team on the field at each time, it's a line of people. 15 people on each side, and the line is split up into 2 parts. The forwards, which are like the linemen and the linebackers, and the backs, which are like the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and the running backs, to put it into football terms.
Would that be the big girls?
The backs are the little girls,
okay.
and the forwards are the big girls.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. So these two squads are always moving in relation to where the ball is. So you want to have your forwards always chasing the ball and maintaining possession. You want your backs on the wide side of the field, who, when the forwards get them the ball, they move quickly down lanes, and they use that open space. So as the play moves across the field, the backs and the forwards have to switch sides. And so everybody is always moving, like this undulating wave of people. The only people that don't move are the wings, which they stay on the sideline, they hold their edge, and then a fullback who trails the ball kind of on a horizontal line, and they just follow the action to the last line of defense, kind of like a safety in football. So even those 3 players who don't move as much are still always moving because they track ball north and south, and for the fullback, east and west. So you're just always running. And what I tell the big girls is that, if you're a bigger player, you still have to have great endurance, because if you can't go over 30 minutes, which is the length of a half, then I can't put you out there. And, the 15 we had last year, we were undefeated in the district. We lost at the regional championship to the team that would win state, and they'd go on to be ranked 7th nationally. They went to complete nationals. We lost to a great team last year, and there's no shame in that. But if I only took the 15 starters I had from last year, we would still have a shot at state. But that's not including all the great recruits we've already gotten this year. And a lot of promising freshmen, some sophomores have come out, and they get excited. They watch it. They don't participate one year. They see it as 8th graders, and they just want to know more. They want to be a part of it.
Well, now you created a dynasty. So you'll never be able to leave Central High School.
I hope so. Yeah, I certainly hope that it could be a dynasty. But I mean, it is awesome that we could bring a sport to a school, and that sport catches on so so I just feel like people want to know about it. They want to be a part. Oh, how's the rugby team? I mean, like, I want to ask them. I mean, do you know anything about rugby? They don't care. They just want to know how the girls doing because they've heard they've had success. And Roger White and the administration, they support anything that puts the kids into action in positive ways. And for us to have a women's rugby team that has now become dominant in the last year has been the best part of my professional experience. And I can't even believe it because I was such a football guy for so long.
Now, I know that Coach Ballou, part of his responsibility is his hat with Ray Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Does rugby fall under you?
Ray has rugby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then
Why can't you have rugby?
Alphabetical? Is it alphabetical? Stops at F.
The boss made 2 columns. He said, "This one's yours and this one's yours."
That's right. Okay.
And
I'm just asking.
that was the discussion.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
that's just way. No, I'm picturing comparing this to football. It's triple option football with always a chance of the Music City Miracle.
Yeah,
with the guys on the sideline.
every single play. And what's interesting is that if a coach was so bold as to teach his football players how to throw a rugby ball, you could never stop that offense. It's so risky because you risk a fumble every time, but that's what rugby is.
Well, let me ask you this. A very important question on my part.
Sure.
How do you score?
So you're gonna Dan.
Get the ball across the line.
Dan is, yeah. As you watch the game and you learn don't worry, Dan, you're gonna have a nice little graphic infographic and a list of terms.
Yeah.
As you watch this game, you're gonna notice so many parallels with football and how football took from rugby many of its terms. But for example, what's it called when you score in football?
Touchdown.
Well, how do you score in rugby? You touch the ball down
on the
past
ground.
the line. So when you cross the try, it's called a try line. It's called a try. So a score is a try, okay? And in football, a touchdown is 6 points. Well, in rugby, a try is 5 points, and the conversion kick, or the point after, is 2 points. So 7 points, just like in football, are up for grabs when somebody scores. So to score, ball carrier crosses the line and then touches the ball to the ground. That's called a try.
Oh man, you got him into PA.
Well,
that's confusing for me.
Yeah. Way back in the day in football, they originally had to touch the ball down on the ground.
Touch ball down because just like rugby, and rugby originated from somebody who was playing soccer, picked up the balls, and as they went, they made the rules up, and that's how rugby came. And actually, basketball came from rugby as well. Basketball was a way to play rugby inside, and then they added the goal to be above the ground instead of on the ground.
You've done too much weird
Tell me about
research
it.
on this.
Tell me about it.
You got too much time on your hands.
So one of the times that play does stop is when you see the big groups of players come together, and that's called the scrum. And that's where football gets the line of scrimmage, and that most simulates two sets of linemen battling each other for possession of the ball. And then, of course,
but it seems like somebody on the edge usually ends up with it
because the ball often comes out the side.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll see a what's called a line out if the ball goes out of bounds, and it looks like a soccer throw-in, but it's a combination of a soccer throw-in and what basketball does for a jump ball. So they throw the ball to players that are lifted up, and they compete for the ball in the air. And that's called a line out.
This is going to be so cool.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Did you see a game last year?
No, I did not.
So Dan, you are unbloodied, as they would say in rugby, and you are about to be amazed. I mean, I can talk about.
I'm a virgin.
Yeah.
At rugby.
I talk passionately. I talk about how tough the girls are, but until you see it, you really get the magnitude of wow.
Well, I've got to stop the show here and say this. I wish that every person had the kind of enthusiasm that Dan LaFond has, because it doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, whatever sport you're talking about. Every time I've seen you, you are always up. You are. Yeah. And it's a wonderful thing to see.
I'm sure Dan LaFond feels that way too. He probably gets very bored
Everybody,
walking around.
Get on my level.
Can you not just be like me, please?
So, and Dan, it's not because I'm any kind of superhero cheerleader. It's because
no, but you got a passion for this.
Well, and that passion comes from their passion.
Right.
I have never seen, and here's the thing. I mean, rugby has stolen my passion from football. I cannot say that I am anywhere near as passionate about rugby as, and this is why. These girls are the hardest working athletes and people that I have seen. And I don't feel like I set different expectations for my freshman football players or varsity than these girls, but when I tell these girls to do something, I look them in the eye, they go, yes, sir. And they do it as hard as they can. And then when I tell them, I need you to be a leader, They go and be a leader. And the girls who don't have that, they go out naturally, and they aren't a part of what we've created. And so to see these girls work so hard, to see them become so successful, it just blows me up with excitement.
Yeah.
And the fact that they respond so well to encouragement and motivation, and honestly tough love, because for the first couple of years I was like, let's play some rugby, huh? We're just learning a new sport. I was just happy-go-lucky, go-lucky guy, and then I started realizing, wow, we could be competitive. And so when I started to get hard, they got hard, and they got tough, and they responded, and we started beating all these teams and becoming dominant. So I told Coach Withrow and Coach McCollum, these girls don't know you. And so you can't come at them super hard, super tough just yet. You have to earn their respect, and you got to earn their love. And once you've done that, you can proceed.
How was it the first time you won?
Super Bowl. Super Bowl victory. Music City Miracle. I mean, it was, the first time we scored one time our first year, and that was a huge deal. Wow, we just scored. I can't even believe it, first year. The first time we won was the second year, and the now seniors were in that game as freshmen. And Ciantra Miller, who is now an all-star standout player, who has colleges looking at her. She's currently in the process of applying to universities for rugby scholarships, and I'm so excited and looking forward to signing our first seniors to college scholarships for rugby. But we were playing in the Nash Bash, which is a Nashville rugby tournament, and a team from Memphis called the Memphis Storm, which is like the team in the West. And if and when we go to the state tournament this year, we will play them if we go west. If we go east, we play Maryville, which is a football powerhouse, or McMinnville, which is very good at rugby. But anyway, that first game, and that was against Memphis, 4 years ago, Ciantra Miller kind of figured out, if I just pick up this ball and run with it, they can't catch me. And I was like, it was like, like when a teacher has that light bulb moment, like the entire team was like, oh, just pick it up and run with it.
That's how that works.
Yeah, run through them. Like, don't be afraid. And so that first win, I'm sitting on the sideline and we're up like 5 or 10 points, and I'm like, we're about to get our first club win. We're about to get our first club win. Like, just like it's all clicking together, like we're about to win. And then we won that one game, and then we lost the rest of them. But my gosh, those girls, come off the field again with smiles, getting beat by these great teams, and then the next year, we had a winning season. Couldn't even believe it. Beat Riverdale at home. That first home win was enormous, and that was the night that Coach Withrow was there, just taking pictures on the sideline. It was her first year at Central, and Coach, you want to kind of talk about like what you saw and you coming in?
I'm kind of wondering what Coach Withrow does, because we've understand that. Well, here's what we're finding out, that Coach McCollum is also known as Major Payne with all the PT.
Yep.
But now and he's the beast in this beauty part. So now we're going to look at the beauty part over here and find out what you do for the girls rugby.
I'm a mom.
Ah.
That's many of them refer to me as mom. I'm seeing this game for the first time. I didn't know what rugby was. My husband, he went to Tennessee Tech, and he said, I think I might do like intramural rugby. I was like, oh, cool, what's that? And that's the only experience I knew. And then when I knew we had a girls rugby team, I said, I want to see this. And he let me come down on the field. And after the first hit, I was just like, oh. And then the next hit, oh. And then, okay. And I was always one of those girls in high school where I didn't find a sport where I fit in. I did softball, and I even did, I showed horses for many, many years. And my friend and I were always like, I wish there was a sport for us, because with women, and I'm sure sometimes with guys, there's a body image thing. But rugby is for everybody. We have girls pushing 98 pounds soaking wet, and then we have some girls, pushing the 200s a little more, but it's for every one of them. And that's what instantly, when I watched it, that's what made me fall in love with it. So this is my second year. I'm still learning, but I feel like I told him, I even took like a whole summer to decide whether I wanted to do this or not, because if I get into something, I'm all in. I'm 100%. And I'm there to support. I'm there to provide structure for the girls. And it's a women's team. You need a woman somewhere in there.
You have to have a positive female role model when you coach a women's sport. Now, that's not true for all teams, high school, college, etc. Sometimes when it's not available. But Coach Withrow has been, as she said, the team mom, but also, this strong, successful female role model for these girls, and they've latched right onto her, and she's working on learning the rugby, and she will be there. She will be as knowledgeable as I am, and
will you let her get up in somebody's face and just give them the eye?
And that's the thing, Well, Coach Witherow,
have.
yeah. Coach Witherow can have conversations that maybe I cannot have,
Yeah.
you know, from an appropriate standpoint. And I'll say to Coach Witherow, hey, let's talk to so-and-so about getting a sports bra. I can't do that, you know, because that's just weird for a male coach to say, hey, listen, you've got a situation when you run that you can be fixed with the right equipment. I don't want to even touch that with a 20-foot pole. So I want to send in Coach Witherow, team mom, and she's going to handle it perfectly, and she has handled it. Yeah, and she's going to handle it perfectly. So, you know, again, one of the best compliments I can receive as a coach is another professional who's been inspired by these girls to want to be a part of it. Same with Coach Mack.
I'm looking forward to doing this. I mean, I volunteered to do that for you, and I said, you know, this is going to be a kick.
It's
going to be something new, you
Yeah.
know. And after what 12 years in the press box for doing football, this is going to be exciting for me.
It's the most fun you can have in the spring under the lights. So it is
At my age, yeah, I'd say so.
in a school
We're not
environment.
going there, man. We're not going there.
In a school environment.
Yeah, I know. I got you.
Yeah.
Thank God we're on cable.
Yeah, but you're gonna have a good time. I'm so glad that you're on board with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you'll
and
enjoy it.
and I don't want to seem like I'm a come lately on this because it's taken a while for me to really understand.
Sure.
And to see you be as passionate with it, and that's one of the reasons that I want to come on, because to be perfectly honest, because of your passion in this thing.
Well, thank you.
When
Yeah,
you
that's way
watch
cool.
it, it's addicting.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to want to see it again and again, and that's why I want it in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I will have help up there, I'm assuming.
Yep. So we will. We've had scorekeepers in the
Right.
past that I've used. My good buddies, Coach Tillman and Coach Taylor, who coach football with us.
I can't be in the same room with
Yeah.
Tillman.
Yeah. No, he's tough to stomach, but it's just an hour a night, Dan. But anyway. I can't wait to text him to make sure he watches this. So we'll have kind of like spotters up there, and you'll have like your little cheat sheet. But realistically, in rugby, I mean, there isn't really a lot to say.
Right.
And play happens, and you can announce who scored a try. If there's a line out, if it's a scrum. The fans will kind of figure out things as it goes along, but it's going to be awesome to just have you as a presence up there.
Sure.
And as you learn the sport, you can then begin to announce more, and you can begin to explain things more thoroughly, especially as you learn like the signals. And like high tackle signals. In rugby, when you score, you keep the ball, and people are so confused. We just got scored on. Why are we giving the ball back to them? That's just one of the rules they got to learn. And in rugby, when a penalty is severe enough or dangerous enough, the offending team will have to go back 10 yards. And so, for an announcer to be like, yep, it was a high tackle, and it'll be a free kick penalty. And then there's, okay, cool. So we know what it is. So I think that's going to be tremendous for the fans and for everything. And people come out. I mean, I am floored when I look behind us and there's hundreds of people up there screaming and cheering their heads off, and they don't know what's going on. The experienced parents do. But you know what? Everybody knows what a tackle is. Everybody knows what a try is, or And when they see our girls erupt, well, they just mirror that, and that's what's nice about the sport.
You got parents that would not normally be sitting in the stands, watching their kid doing something that they didn't think that their kid would ever do.
Absolutely, and parents come to me all the time like, "This is such the perfect sport for so and so," and it's been the best. I love it. I do.
I can tell. Man, I've never seen a guy as passionate about a sport as you are with this, and everything else that you do too. Same way.
I mean, it's the girls. It's their hard work. It's what they do. It's what they've accomplished. And I keep telling them, we have our conference championship plaque in my room. And I was like, ladies, that's a dust catcher. I'm like, you did that last year. That was an amazing
that conference
accomplishment.
championship plaque needs to be out there in the trophy case.
Well, we're waiting for because the school's switching over, and so all the coaches were
Okay.
instructed to keep the things.
keep their stuff.
Yeah, keep their stuff until the new
now.
case. But this never satisfied attitude, and the girls have latched onto it. Now the next step is playing in a state championship, being a state champion, and if you win a regional championship, you've got a great shot of being a state champion. So, that's the focus. State is the word, and that's where we're going.
After all that gold, football has not left Vance Ballew's house since 2010.
Now, Coach, what nights do you play on?
So it could be any night, and any night but Sunday, and the schedule will be decided in February. We are looking at having for the first time ever, and hopefully a yearly thing, a Columbia Central Rugby Jamboree.
Cool.
We bring 4 men's teams, 4 girls teams. Everybody plays a half against each other, and the community can see men's and women's teams, but also who's playing what kind of game. And Spring Hill High School is starting their women's team, and they're coming in brand new, just like we were. and we're kind of taking them under our paw and helping them out. And they'll be there that night. And Ravenwood will probably come down, and some great boys teams. But just kind of get Columbia more involved in the sport and see how awesome it can be. And I think it'll be a good time.
Now, we didn't talk about this, but you mentioned the other day, and I'm trying to put you on the spot.
Okay.
But you said something about an announcement you may have, or have you done that?
Sure. So that was speaking to the effect of the college recruitment.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, I had sent 25 emails to universities, colleges, all over the United States that offered women's rugby, and some of them I knew offered scholarships. Some were just a university club, and I've received 10 emails back and 2 phone calls.
Wow.
The first phone call I received to my office phone. I mean, it was like it just struck me. I was dumbstruck. First phone call I received from New York. Pick it up. Hi, this is Mr. LaFond, and this guy introduced himself as Bill Leclerc. He's a New Zealander, and he's the head coach of women's rugby at West Point Academy.
Wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
I was
big.
like, the West Point. He's like, yes, sir. And I'm like, great. So, and so
You mean the West Point, like the Ohio State?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. He talked for 45 minutes about their program and what they do and about West Point Academy. And I knew very little about it. But he, when I sent the email out, it was a big, long email saying, I'd like to open up a line of communication between our school and your college for the purposes of recruitment. I put together a highlight film of some seniors and some juniors. And he says, I was really impressed with what some of the girls have going on with their athleticism and their skill set. And I'd love for them to apply. I would love, and he said, threw out a few names. And so one of our seniors is going through the process. And I'm very excited when we figure out, how she does with applying to West Point, because it would blow your mind what has to happen, including congressional approval. And, they admit 9% of the candidates. And it isn't all about academics. It's about character, leadership, et cetera. And I think that this young woman, as I do think about some of our other young women, that they are West Point material. And so for them to, when you are a cadet, you have to play a sport. It's something I learned. And so I think that that coach wants rugby players, because I feel like, at West Point, they say, well, I don't really play a sport. You could play rugby. Because, you know what, you could pick it up. You can learn it, but I'm sure that coach who, if he's from New Zealand, rugby is their national sport. It's their religion. I'm sure he's just dying for rugby players to apply to the school. So the coaches and the administrators, they're all part of the admission process. And so it's been very exciting to be a part of that. So Penn State University is a women's rugby powerhouse in the United States. Last 22 championships, they've been in 20 of them. They don't offer rugby scholarships, but their program is fully funded. So nothing else is paid for. You just have to pay for tuition. Lindenwood University in Missouri is a huge rugby program. Life University in Georgia. So there's teams, sprinkled throughout. And several of the coaches called out individual players that they'd like to talk to, said, please have all your girls apply, and so that's a huge deal to now say, let's bridge to college. Let's say, hey, if you work hard enough in the sport like you already do, this can take you to school, and it will pay for some of your school. And a lot of these girls already have great grades anyway. So with financial aid and the scholarships available for academics, I mean, some of these girls can go to school for free.
Now, we had talked back in the fall that there was a possibility of creating a men's rugby team at Central.
Yes.
Is that still on the drawing board?
So right now, I feel like a lot of the focus, which I think it should be, is getting our football team back to where Columbia football should be. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed a marked difference in the weight room culture this last week and the week before versus a month ago. And when you walk into our weight room today, it's loud. There's noise. There's whistles. There's yelling. There's activity. Everybody's moving, and I just feel like they are just cracking the whip so hard that the coaches that were interested in starting a men's team have kind of shifted their focus back to getting Central football back on point, which I think is the correct thing to do right now with what has happened. I think that is the coaching staff. They are phenomenal men. They are character driven. And they've just got a lot of things to work on, and they've started, the next day. I mean, next fall started, 2 weeks ago. Right. So I think that those guys are about to turn this program around. And so for me to be like, hey, what about that men's rugby team? I don't feel like they need that distraction right now. Okay. I know that there are young men on the team who would benefit from rugby. I know that the defense especially would benefit from the tackling style. But I'm not going to push it any further than a coach wants to come forward and do it. So again, it's a whole new sport. It's a big undertaking to coach a sport, to bring a sport to a school. I do hope we bring men's rugby to Central because I know that we'd be very successful with the athletes we have, and we just need the coaches to do that. So
And with Coach McCullum as Major Payne, then
yeah. Hey,
and all of his
yeah.
PT.
And that's that's the thing is that in a few years, in 3 to 4 years, if Coach
Right.
Mack is still kicking with us here, which I hope he is, he's going to have just as much rugby knowledge as any player, as me, as Coach Witherow, who's going to be in a great place, rugby IQ wise. I mean, there's no reason why. Right now we have 5 women's coaches. We've got the 3 you have here. We have a parent who was a Tennessee Tech rugby player. His freshman daughter started this year. They actually moved to Columbia because we had women's rugby, and that was pretty awesome to hear. He emailed me and asked me. And then we have a former player who's now I believe 21, and she wanted to come back and help coach, assistant coach part-time. So we have 5 women's rugby players. And so eventually I think we get to the point to where we could have a men's team. We all practice together, and we can run the show. But for right now, the focus is women's.
Very good. Want to give a shout out to Glenn and Kathy True Love's Pizza and Grits on 1144 Riverside Drive in Columbia. They are our sponsor for the All the Balls Sports Show, and pizza's coming. Don't worry, Ty, it's coming.
He's drooling over there.
I know he is. Give them a call, 931-388-7770, and check out, if you've never had their chicken and grits, it is a grilled chicken breast with their grits on the side. It is awesome. Okay. Need to check it out. But we're going to have here shortly some meat lovers from True Loves.
Sounds awesome.
Yummy.
As he said in the text last night. Well, this is the first of many shows that we're going to be doing for the All the Ball Sports Show, and Dan and Coach McCullum and Coach Witherow, we thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
And talking about the women's rugby. It's just, listening to you talk just makes it, want to go out and play right now. So let's go out in the street, grab a rugby ball and go out there and do it. So it's going to be fun. Eddie, you got any parting shots you want to take?
Nah, it's been fun tonight.
Yeah.
I've got a kick out of listening to Coach over here and his enthusiasm. When we had him on Thursday night,
Mm-hmm.
and that show ended up, and everybody was walking off, I looked at Dan and I said, I wish Coach LaFawn would have been a little more excited.
Yeah. I'm working on it. I really am.
And Coach Witherow's husband and my son are friends, and they play a lot of online video games together.
Awesome.
I married a child.
Ooh, don't talk to my daughter.
And her father-in-law and I used to work together back in the dark ages, and so we go way back. So
Way back.
way
Coach
back.
Ballou, you have anything you'd like to wrap up with?
Just glad for the update on rugby. It's exciting, and we obviously have 3 great leaders here representing Central High School very well.
I just like the way that it's taken off from basically nothing.
Nothing.
Just a thought from
A sophomore,
yeah,
Regina Vargas. She was the first lioness.
and you'll remember her forever.
I will. We have an award in her honor, actually. Yeah,
Very
for
good.
sure will. Yeah, for sure will.
Good.
All right, very good. Ty Cobb, one of our co-hosts. What do you got?
Oh, just very interesting. Good luck to y'all. And I really like the rugby, Central Women's Rugby purple shirts.
Yeah, I'm hoping that
Oh, don't you
a
worry.
2X will be coming my way.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry. We'll get you taken care of. We'll take care of our crew.
Because once I get back in the gym after the first of the year, hopefully,
Right.
Well,
We'll be taking it
we
off.
can start on that tonight by you not eating as much pizza. Leave it to me and Eddie.
hey, look, you're wanting to take it home. I know what you want to do, and chances are, Carol will be enjoying some later on this evening too. So,
Well, I tell you, after listening to Coach LaFawn, I'm looking forward to going out and seeing some of this rugby.
oh, this will be
Absolutely.
fun.
Yep.
Well, Eddie always joins me in the press box anyway,
Well,
so
well,
that's
good. So he'll be
oh,
there.
yeah.
Great.
Oh yeah, this will be a whole lot of fun, guys. We appreciate y'all coming in, and we hope everybody will join us on Facebook. We do have a Facebook page now for the All the Ball Sports Show, and you can, in the future, probably be able to contact us through the Facebook page with any questions you might have for future guests that will be coming on.
Cool.
And Vance will be joining us next time, and hopefully Ty will be here next time, and Eddie will be here next time. We'll have another guest that we'll be talking to on the All the Ball Sports Show. For all you guys, I'm Dan James. We're out of here.